country, the productive capability of the country. One-third, the thinkers, the institutions, the universities. And these 3/3 of the country comprise what Israel is all about. Except there's one problem. It's only 1/3. It's 1/3 that does serve in the army, that serves in that holds the economy, and that mans the universities and does the research. The same 1/3. And that 1/3 felt, you know, and I say to a large extent, rightly felt, that they are like the rowers on the Roman gallows ships. You know, the Roman gallows ships had 2 decks. At the bottom were the slaves who were tied to the rows, and they would row the ship. At the top, there were a couple of patricians sitting there enjoying the Sicilian sun and enjoying the weather and everything. And those poor guys were pushing this. They were the ones who were rowing the ships. Well, the slaves decided to revolt. But it happened in a democratic system, in a true democratic system. So it wasn't like the burst of violence and bloodshed in the streets like you see in Syria and everything, but a model of how democracy under fire has to react, has to act, and responds, and how the government responds to the people. The government would not have responded if that protest was not such, you know, massive and clear, and the government would not have listened, but it had to. And Israel had the good fortune that today the government has the capabilities to solve the problem. It has the resources because the Israeli economy is better. But this is a shining model for the future of the Middle East. You want to see how democracy functions? Not in peaceful manner, but look at Israel in this Israeli summer and learn how democracy should function, how democracy should work. And this is, again, something that is a rarity in today's world where democracies are unable to hold themselves together, unable to feed their people, and Israeli democracy is able and also meet the challenges that other countries fail to meet and are falling apart. That's the Israeli summer, which I believe makes Israel stronger. You know, when the government has to respond to that, it can't brush it under the rug. There may be some political changes, but this is what makes Israel stronger, because it means that the people in the society, those who pitch tents in Tel Aviv and in Jerusalem, when the time comes and they have to defend the country, will know that they will be able to pitch tents on the borders and fight for the country, and with no qualms and no reservations. That's the summer. The other thing that affects all of us, you and us together, is the global autumn, the global economic autumn in the world. Now that's something that we do not control. It's like tsunami waves that are rising because of the fact that the world economic order did not adjust itself to the changing times. The United States denies the change, denies the reality, and China denies responsibility. China is rising up, the United States is declining. So there has to be a change in the world economic order which the leaders of the free world have to take and harness. And that's really a question of leadership with the United States, with the European Common Market, and with China and India, the rising forces in today's world. While this adjustment is not taking place, of course, many economies go under. Look what happened in Greece. Look what happened in the banking system in Europe. Look what is here in the United States, when there's always this fear of a 2-digit recession coming in. And look at Israel. Israel is surfing on top of it. It's not a tanker. It's not a big ship that knows how to ride the ship. Just a surfboard. And being able to surf on that because of our high tech, because of our capability to innovate in the economy, and because of very wise management of the economy in the past 5 or 6 years. And as a result of that, we have been hurt by this worldwide economic crisis, but we're intact. Around us, things are falling apart, and they're having strategic implications to Israel, because when the dollar is weak, the United States is weak. Regardless of whether you have a black president in the White House, a white president in the White House, or a pro-Israeli or an anti-Israeli president. The reality is that when the dollar is weak, and the U.S. economy is weak, and the United States has to grapple with such, doesn't have the capabilities to impose or to dictate the terms, as it did after World War II to Europe and to other countries in the world. When the dollar was strong, the United States was victorious. Now the United States has fighting 2 wars in World War III, those 2 wars in Afghanistan and in Iraq, and it's receding. I know, it's right. Maybe they didn't fight the right war at the right time, but the implication is that in the image, in the minds of people in the Middle East, the United States is weak. And that allows all sorts of ruffians in the neighborhood to take control, to take over. So what happens? You know, in the UN, we win in terms of the debating contest. UN is like a modern-day Colosseum, like in Italy, you know, where the gladiators used to fight each other. The crowds were cheering, and the emperor turned his finger up and down. Meanwhile, Rome was falling apart. But everybody cheered in the Colosseum. So there's very little relation between what happens in the UN and what happens outside of the UN. And therefore I'm saying the fact that we were able, you know, a Palestinian state was not the issue. And they understand that, you know, if they had to bring a situation in which the UN would impose its, where the United States would impose its veto, it would mean that, you know, that there'll be no Palestinian state, and they'll have no money, you know, if they go ahead with a declaration. So meanwhile, they're discussing it, and they're stretching it out, because the real game is not in the UN. The real game, the game plan of the Arab countries, and Raanan, who puts himself at the head of it, is the anti-Israel campaign, new type of warfare, diplomatic warfare, law warfare, boycott, the DBS, divestment, boycott, and sanctions against Israel, and to harness as many countries as possible. Now, if the economic situation in the world was different, maybe it wouldn't be, you know, easier. But today, when Europe is falling apart, major economic markets of Israel are in Europe and in the United States, divestment and boycott can hurt. And particularly if those countries say, well, you know, why should we make business with Israel? You know, we can't make business with anyway, and they deny us the markets that are important to us. So while the Palestinian and their supporters understand that they can't really, you know, they can create a virtual state, but a real state without Israel they can't create. Meanwhile, they can try to be the spoiler of the Jewish state, which is what they've been trying to do for 62 years and so. And that requires really the kind of harnessing and mobilization of forces like we have with Phil Blazer, NGOs around the country, Christians, not just governments. This is not the world controlled by governments. Governments are losing control. NGOs are gaining control. We need our own NGOs, like the Palestinians have on their side, that will tell the truth, that will recommit the world to the values that we uphold, that will show the real Israel. I mean, we can give them the information, but they have to disseminate it. And we are at the basic thing, the basic message we have to the world is that Israel is not the problem of the Middle East. Given what is happening in the Middle East, the fact that the Middle East is falling apart, and the fact that on the horizon we're going to have an Iranian winter coupled with a radical Islamic winter, with a bomb, maybe, then the preservation of life becomes the prime responsibility of the free world. And Israel leads the battle. We lead the battle in many, many ways, not just in the fact that the United States of America and the armed forces of the United States of America are copying our system of target interception. Oh, I have a story about this. You know, in the daylight, they come and they castigate us. They rebuke us. They say, you're using disproportionate force. You shouldn't use that. It's immoral. At night, their generals are coming to us, and the Pentagon people and the NATO people. How do you do it? What's new in the business? Tell us, how do you do it? And lo and behold, the United States has been a good student of this system, and every now and then, you know, major Al-Qaeda operator is out. Bin Laden was first, Anwar al-Kawi was second, there'll be others coming forward. That's another element of preserving life. It's preserving life as we know it, you know, by not killing whole population or attacking whole, but just the target. It's the most moral type of warfare to do it. And this has a similar moral imperative as what Shaare Zedek is doing when it absorbs Palestinian women and gives them treatment for fertilization, when it takes Palestinian kids and cures them. When today 13 Palestinian kids from Gaza are being treated in the Save a Heart in Israel, in the Wolfson Hospital, and then sent home with a new heart. I know what they're going to do with their heart when they become 16. It's going to be full of hatred. But nevertheless, we gave them life. And everybody knows it. And people use the summer vacations in Israel for family reunion coming from across the border, from Jordan, from Saudi Arabia, and they send their kids, they say, go get medical treatment in Israel. Why? Because these Jews, they know how to preserve life and how to save life. And that's our message. The message is not that we excel in target assassination because we want to preserve life. We excel in biotechnology also because we want to save life. That's the whole thing, the whole story. This is the narrative of Israel. One of the problems when we deal, you know, with, and this I want to finish, one of the problems when we deal with today's warfare, as I said, it's a war over the hearts and minds of people. It's a warfare of the consciousness of the world. One of the things is that in this kind of war, it's not enough to have a good message, a right message. You have to have a story. It's all in the story. I mean, I come from that industry. You got to tell a good story. You know what? In the 60s, remember, of the last century, Israel didn't need people like me. It didn't need battalions of people that would come and express, didn't need to rebrand Israel. Nothing. We had Abba Eban at the UN, who was the greatest speaker, you know, under very, very difficult conditions, like Netanyahu at his time. But we also had another asset that Bibi Netanyahu does not have. A young nation. Its story was told by the movie Exodus. We had Paul Newman. Oh, that blonde guy. Coming out of the ashes, saving the nation, breaking the siege, and bringing the people to their promised land. The whole world went for it. And what happened? In 50 years, the Palestinians stole that narrative from us, and now it's in the reverse. A flotilla to Gaza. Oh, this is our Paul Newmans are coming there to save the people, break the siege. It's not the British Navy, it's the Israeli Navy now. People don't care about the facts. Oh, but this is a good story. And they go after this. Oh, we have to reinvent ourselves. We have to recreate the new narrative of Israel, the narrative of life. Now that we are here in this country, we raise the beacon. Darkness is falling all over the Middle East. The old regimes are falling apart. There are going to be, and I'm not just describing it, I'm not a preacher, a Sunday day preacher describing a future situation. I'm describing the situation right now. When these countries are not able to establish democratic regimes, and these countries are not able to establish any kind of semblance of regime, they're going to deteriorate to the state of Somalia. Somalia is going to be in Libya. Somalia is going to be in Syria. Somalia is going to be in Egypt. And then what? You'll have millions of people, hunger refugees, running around the Middle East, searching for work, searching for food. And where are they going to come to? The one place where they see the beacon of light. In the same manner that the narrative of the United States was the Statue of Liberty, people from all over the world in the 18th and 19th century came to the United States because of that beacon of light. Israel does not have the Statue of Liberty, but it has that beacon where people know, and they vote with their feet, and they endanger their life to come into Israel, even to be incarcerated, but they know there they're going to be treated like human beings. And that's the message we have to carry. That's the message that will enable us to survive in this world and maybe also to change it a little bit. And sooner or later, when the Middle East countries, or those that will understand, and particularly the more moderate countries, which really, their regime really care about their people and would want to do something to improve their life condition, to put food on their table, will come to realize that Israel is not the problem. Israel is the solution to the Middle East. And we ask them to come and join us. And we tell the Palestinian, I tell the Palestinian, this is your last train. This is the last train, because if the real collapse of Arab regime, that the Arab system is going to happen, no one is going to count you. No one is going to pay attention to you. You're not going to be the deluxe refugees that you are today. Money is not going to come. Join us. We're like a very sophisticated 21st century spaceship. The hatches are open, and we're telling the people who want, come join us. We know the way and the journey to the 21st century. This is your opportunity. You don't want to join us? We'll go alone. We'll go alone because we can survive alone. We've been showing it all. But the quest for peace is for you. The quest for peace is not for the Jews. And we're ready to make a compromise. We're ready to come to you. But if you're not ready, then you'll be left behind. We have places to go, and that's our destiny. Thank you.